It is 10:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans coaching staff is complete. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reported on Tuesday that Justin Outen will be hired as the team's running backs coach and running game coordinator. Outen spent the 2022 season as the Broncos offensive coordinator. Prior to that, he spent 3 years as the Packers tight ends coach. The NFL hiring cycle is complete. Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon has been announced as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. That makes all 5 coaching vacancies having been filled in the NFL. College basketball, Vanderbilt won its 4th straight game on Tuesday, 75-64 over South Carolina. Forward Liam Robbins continued his hot streak, scoring 24 points and 8 rebounds as the Commodores improved to 14-12. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody's having a great start to their day. Feels phenomenal outside. Hope you are having a great one so far. We'll see if we can't make it better over the course of the next 3 hours. 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. Lucas and I have got you covered. Voice of the Vols, Bob Kesling. He's coming up in the noon hour. Big game for Tennessee at home, hosting the number 1 team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide, tonight. Cannot afford, I don't even want to call it a slip-up, cannot afford another missed opportunity as they try and solidify their seeding as we get closer and closer to March Madness. You mentioned a big win for Vandy last night. Anchor down. How about that?
They're hot. Took care of business against a bad team.
Don't let the Commodores get hot. Wasn't that a comment in the chat the other day? Turns out it was right. Okay, congrats to Vandy. 4 straight in conference play. That's a big day. I mean, South Carolina's a 9-win team, so, you know, they should have been able to handle business, but
that's what they did.
Road win, SEC.
Dominant road win. I mean, that game was never in question. I mean, the final 75-64 makes it look closer than it was, but we'll talk about it.
Okay. We should also talk about the fact that the Titans coaching staff appears to be filled out. They added Justin Outen officially, who they interviewed during the course of the hiring process. Remember that it was never specified what job Outen was interviewing with the Titans for, just known to be a position on their offensive coaching staff. Turns out it's running backs coach and run game coordinator, which Pelissero then, I think, followed up yesterday. He was the first on it. So he is going to be added as the run game coordinator. He's going to take over for Tony Dews as the running backs coach. Now, he was the Broncos OC last year and landed on a list of candidates for the offensive coordinator position of a couple of other teams. So I don't remember if Charles London interviewed for another OC job elsewhere. I don't believe I saw that anywhere, and I look back at my notes, couldn't find any indication that he had interviewed for an offensive coordinator job with a team other than the Titans. But at least 2 people who were interviewing for offensive coordinator jobs elsewhere landed on the Titans coaching staff throughout the course of this cycle. So what that looks like, ultimately what that means, we'll have months to talk about it, and we won't have anything meaningful until September. And even then, it'll still be like, okay, let's see what this thing looks like in the next iteration. But it is meaningful to me that he called the offensive plays in Denver for 2 games. Not a huge sample size, but it was some of the best scoring outputs that the Broncos had last season. Now, their season was done, but still. That was after Nathaniel Hackett got fired, by the way. He was the tight ends coach in Green Bay, Outen was, for 3 years before going to Denver, and he's been a part of the Falcons coaching staff as well. So now all of this will work under Tim Kelly. Tony Dews, formerly running backs coach to tight ends. Luke Steckel, you've got all kinds of run game analysts. Now Pat O'Hara's a pass game analyst, no longer quarterbacks coach. And whatever this conglomeration ends up looking like, we will wait to see. Tyler says in the YouTube chat, so is that 3 coaches Vrabel hired as assistants that were interviewing for coordinator spots? Well, let's count them, shall we? Outen, London, Chris Harris. Am I forgetting anybody?
Steckel.
Steckel did interview for an offensive coordinator job with the Chargers and ultimately was retained on the Titans coaching staff. They went with Kellen Moore, who left the Cowboys job, it sounds like, specifically to go to L.A. So let's call it 3. No, I mean,
it's 4.
Go ahead and give Steckel his flowers. 4.
Yeah, it's not, coaches that were interviewed to be the Titans offensive coordinator.
No, but I was thinking of people who weren't on the staff already. Because those are 3 new additions to the staff. Outen, Chris Harris, and Charles London. Luke Steckel was already on the staff as the tight ends coach, now the run game analyst for the Titans. So, I mean, is this the kind of like going outside the comfort zone, the breaking of the old boys network, whatever you want to call it? Like, is this enough for you? That they've hired this many external candidates, guys who were well thought of in the hiring process, and ultimately landed on these 3 dudes, plus Steckel, who was retained. I don't know how Titans fans feel about that. I don't know if the Tim Kelly thing is the thing that people are still gravitating towards, is kind of like, hey, it's still an offensive coordinator from in-house, which is not what a lot of people seem to want. They got an external candidate hired as the general manager. I don't know how much of that is good enough to indicate change. It seems like that structure is going to continue to evolve.
And an assistant general manager, which was made official yesterday.
Which is what I was getting to in Chad Brinker. And we'll see what they do with the staff in the front office after the draft. So ultimately, this is a different looking situation and a lot of same faces in new roles, but enough of an influx of what is considered to be coaching talent to at least, I think, make people feel better about the status of the Titans coaching staff. Now, like I said, we have no idea, no earthly idea until probably October, and then we can start to make judgments about what this team will look like, how this coaching staff is operating, what tweaks they need to make after the first month of the season. I need a 4-game sample size before I make any rushed judgments about this football team. But they finished the staff yesterday. It's worth talking about. Meanwhile, head coaches around the league, both Eagles coordinators are now NFL head coaches, and Eric Bieniemy is not. Eric Bieniemy is still not an offensive coordinator anywhere but Kansas City. The Colts ultimately hired, as we started the show yesterday, Shane Steichen, the Eagles OC, Jonathan Gannon. Their defensive coordinator is now the top coach in Arizona. And so as you kind of look around the league, and we'll talk about the head coaching hires more at length, you've got a couple of familiar faces in Sean Payton, who took a year off, came back, had to be traded for, but ultimately landed with the Denver Broncos. You've got a handful of new faces, first-time head coaches, both of those Eagles coordinators that I mentioned, people like Demico Ryans, who will get an opportunity, guys who have been in the league for many, many years. Frank Reich in Carolina. Did you see who he hired as his, is it quarterbacks coach?
I believe passing game coordinator. Maybe he has quarterbacks coach under his title as well. But, yeah, Parks Frazier, who took over as the play caller when they fired Reich.
He had that one game against the Raiders, baby.
Yeah, then passing game coordinator will be his official title.
And then everything went to hell. Brandon Rushing says that Charles London also interviewed with the Commander Skins football team. We will confirm that.
Which is where Eric Bieniemy, if he's going to find a landing spot at OC, you would think it would be in Washington.
That's what I'm saying. Todd Monken took the Ravens job. So it's Washington or bust? I mean, does Carolina officially have an OC? I know we talked about their passing game coordinator, but do they have an offensive coordinator now under Frank Reich? I can look this up.
Yeah, not that I've seen. I'm not sure. I mean, Reich, you imagine will call the plays.
Marcus Brady was fired under Frank Reich. That's the first thing that came up when I looked up Reich's name. But looking at the Carolina Panthers hires right now, Jim Caldwell is there as just an assistant. He interviewed for the head coaching job. Jim Bob Cooter is who they have requested for the OC job, as well as Thomas Brown, who is the Rams assistant head coach. They have a second interview scheduled, but apparently nothing made official as to hires for Carolina.
Charles London did, by the way, interview with Washington.
Man, what is Eric Bieniemy got to be thinking? I mean, but because I don't want to do like reckless speculation, right? I have no idea why Eric Bieniemy isn't getting jobs. I have no concrete idea whatsoever, other than, you hear people whisper about stuff that's completely unfair to I think discuss as meaningful reasons. But there's no reporting around this, really. He'll put out a statement from time to time every time he gets passed over for one of these head coaching jobs, as he's just been again. I mean, is he not made available in Kansas City? Like, I don't think I've ever heard Eric Bieniemy himself speak on this stuff. He's an offensive coordinator. One would think they're speaking to him on a regular basis with the Kansas City media. I don't know that. I haven't seen, like, press conference clippings of him.
And Andy Reid's always gone to bat for him.
Always. Gone out of his way. Even Chad Henne. Chad Henne went out of his way to talk about specific plays in the Super Bowl that the Chiefs used to their advantage that were put in by Eric Bieniemy. So everybody's caping up for this dude at the place where he's currently employed, and still he can't get, he can get a sniff, but not really, seems like. What was the closest he got? The Colts' second round?
This cycle, it felt like he didn't get just very close in general. I mean, was the Colts the only job that his name was thrown into the ring for?
I don't remember. I would have to go through and look, but like just looking at the interview requests that they have here for teams, head coach for the Cardinals, he was not requested. He was requested as the Ravens OC. Ultimately, they gave that job to Todd Monken. He was not requested as a part of the Denver Broncos head coaching search. This is all according to NFL.com, by the way. Not a part of the Houston Texans head coaching search. Mentioned with the Colts, a completed interview. But other than that, for head coaching openings, I think that's it.
With all the coaching turnover, we had, 8, 9 vacancies last offseason and then 5 this offseason?
Yeah.
All that coaching turnover in the midst of all this success the Chiefs have been having on offense, it feels like if it's not happening in this cycle, then I don't know that it's going to happen for Eric Bieniemy.
The only places I see Eric Bieniemy's name interviewed for the Washington Commanders, requested by the Titans for OC, second round of interviews for the Colts as head coach, and then interview requested by the Ravens as their OC as well. Those are the only places, at least on this NFL.com coaching, they have a coaching and GM and assistant tracker that is as accurate as anything you're going to find out there. It is a fascinating dynamic because it felt like whatever momentum was behind Eric Bieniemy in the first couple of years, it just felt like that went to Demico Ryan's this cycle, right? Wasn't Demico Ryan's basically discussed as the newest, hottest first-time head coaching hire, and then ultimately he lands with his former franchise in the Houston Texans. So let's talk about some of these head coaching hires, specifically the landing spots that they ultimately ended up going to, and also some additional news about teams interested in trading for Ryan Tannehill that I'm sure we'll get to at some point throughout the course of the day. 615-737-1045 is how you join us. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. So the NFL head coaching cycle, at the very least, has concluded. Known properties, or at least somewhat known properties, for each of these teams that was going through it at this point. The number of teams that had openings this cycle, 5 in total: Houston, Carolina, Indianapolis, Arizona, and Denver. So I think we should just go through and like grade these. Should we just go like early 2000s Bleacher Report and grade the coaching hires?
So grading on which one you think will have the most success, which one wins over the fan base the most, because projecting success is a tough thing to do.
So let me do it this way, because I'm not interested in projecting success. I have no idea.
Like Nathaniel Hackett was a hot pick for Coach of the Year last NFL preseason.
I would love to go back and see like the odds on like Coach of the Year before the season began. I bet you're right.
That would be a fun exercise to go back and look at odds for preseason MVP and Rookie of the Year and Coach of the Year.
Well, that's something that like I know people get bent about things like Football Outsiders and what is DVOA, and they just start growling because there's too much math in their football. But I think Football Outsiders, when they put out that almanac every year ahead of the season, that kind of like forecasts the NFL season, they do a good job of like keeping themselves accountable. They pick like the teams that are going to finish in the top of DVOA offensively and defensively every year, and ultimately the Super Bowl winner. And like, the hit rate is minuscule, right? Because there's so many different things that happen throughout the course of an NFL season. But I do always appreciate kind of having that context of what the thought process was prior to the season and where ultimately things ended up landing. So let's just do A through F. Let's do it on fit, okay? Fit based on what we know is already there. I don't think we can necessarily speak for the fan base of the Cardinals, for example. I have no idea how Cardinals fans feel about the hiring of Jonathan Gannon. All I know is Eagles fans hate him for reasons that are beyond me, because they had a couple of coverage busts that I don't think were Jonathan Gannon's fault in that Super Bowl, and Jalen Hurts fumbled that allowed a score for Kansas City as they rallied back.
Yeah, so they ultimately, they allowed 31 points to the Chiefs.
Yes. So let's just do it by fit. Now you can lump, interest level. You can do, if you want, projected success. I have no interest in that. But let's start with Demico Ryans and the Houston Texans. A through F, I'll let you start. How would you grade this hire?
B plus. Because there is the uncertainty there. He's a first-year head coach. But as far as fit goes within the culture of Houston and that franchise, it doesn't seem like they could have had a better pick. And Demico Ryan's a franchise legend and a fast-rising name as a young, up-and-coming head coach.
So explain to me the culture of Houston. What does that mean?
Well, and I strictly mean Demico Ryan's and his familiarity with the franchise.
Yep.
Seemingly, there is a great affinity for Demico Ryan's in the city of Houston. With all the years that he played there, was one of the best players on their defense for a long stretch of time. He clearly knows that franchise, knows its fan base. They know him. And that hire appeared to be received very, very well. Maybe the best reception out of any of the 5 hires that were made, to me, as far as the familiarity goes with the candidate and the franchise.
People were too busy dragging the Broncos with Ian Rappaport's reporting around the idea that they tried to hire Ryans twice, and he was like, I'm good. Kind of. It seemed that way anyway.
Yeah. Well, that was weird because Schefter was saying the complete opposite thing. That the Broncos,
Insidergate.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened there.
So he replaces Lovie Smith, who is another one of these one-and-dones. They've done this twice now, David Culley and Lovie Smith. What indication is there, other than they seem to have taken this hire more seriously than the last two? And maybe that's all the indication that you need. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't know one way or the other. What indication do I have that Demico Ryans is another one-and-done? I have no precedent to work off of for that. I don't trust these people. I don't trust the Houston Texans at all.
It's totally fair, but there is a different feeling around this, right?
Sure.
Like when they elevated Lovie Smith, it's like, okay, you just elevated the defensive coordinator from the staff of the coach you just fired, who won 4 games and everybody expected him to win, 2?
I'm just saying, I saw Shane Steichen get a 6-year contract reportedly NFL Network again on that, from the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know the length of Demico Ryan's contract. I don't know that it matters in a place like Houston. All I'm saying is, like, what that would be my first question. What concrete evidence do I have that you're not going to fire me after this season if I'm Demico Ryan's? Now, as far as what you've just described, yeah, I think to try and get people back into an empty building, because, buddy, NRG Stadium, they just no signs of life. The last, I don't think I did that trip during the COVID year. Maybe I did, because that was Derek for 2000. That's where they ended the season. I don't know why I can't remember being there.
They ended the season a couple of years in a row at NRG Stadium.
Yeah, but I know the only reason I would have made that trip during the COVID season, because I only did like 2 road trips during COVID. I don't think Houston was one of them at the end. Anyway, the last 2 years that I've been down there that I can remember for certain, that place has been, empty. Empty. It's not like there's a majority of Titans fans in there, but the Titans fans in there are loud, they're noticeable, and that's in part because the Houston Oilers obviously have history, and they have taken some of that fan base with them. And the Texans are an unrelenting suffering in the last couple of seasons, where their last greatest success was the alleged pervert quarterback, and really not that alleged, who they were kind of sour on towards the end. So what Demico Ryans has in front of him, I think it's a heavy lift. I think if anybody was going to get the benefit of the doubt, you're right. Because of the fan base that knows him, because of the fan base that respects him, the organization, the players, it does matter to have coaches who have played in the NFL. It's something you hear mentioned quite a bit around Mike Vrabel when guys interact with him at the Pro Bowl, for example, a couple of years ago when the Titan staff was coaching. And he's just generally well received in those settings, and you can tell that a lot of current players have that respect for guys who formerly played.
And then it's obviously critical who he brings on as his offensive coordinator, which is Bobby Slovic. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Bobby Slovic, the passing game coordinator of the 49ers.
Kingsbury's not going to get a job this cycle, is he?
Unless the Cardinals hire him. Be the offensive coordinator. Jonathan Gannon's got to go get his guy.
Hey, Kliff, since we're still technically paying you through 2027, bud, I hope you enjoyed your trip to Thailand. You want to come call games for Kyler? Kyler would poop himself.
Yeah, you're on the books anyway.
What a time to be alive.
But no, that was the only job that that his name came up regarding, right? And it was just Kliff Kingsbury's in talks. And that's all it was.
Just that he was in Houston.
With Houston.
And he was he was being asked about their OC job. So now at this point, I've stalled enough on one hire. I will, you said B+. I will say B-. I will err on the side of caution there. 1, because I don't trust them as an organization. 2, because we talked about yesterday how just generally directionless they have been. So what is going to fix that other than Demico Ryans? And he's only one man in his first year as an NFL head coach. They have all kinds of draft picks, so we'll see what that ultimately ends up for the roster. But I think a B-. It's a good position for them. It's a good position for him because it's his first one. But the Texans, just generally, I can't get over the stigma that I have or the preconceived notions that I have about them as a franchise.
Yeah, fair enough.
Frank Reich, I'm good to give an A, though. I'm good with the idea of an A, even if I don't know who the quarterback is. He's Carolina's head coach. Obviously got fired not quite halfway, a little more than halfway through the Colts season.
Yeah, Saturday coaches 7 games.
Yeah, that's right. So he replaces Matt Rule and Steve Wilkes.
Another franchise hiring a former player of that franchise.
Yep. In fact, he was a draft pick by the Panthers, right?
He was the first ever the first ever draft pick of the Carolina Panthers. Definitely the first ever starting quarterback.
So, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, these are the kind of players that are going to be talked about. I don't know if you're the Panthers organization, you trust Frank Reich going out and getting another veteran quarterback. You feel good about that idea? I don't know. But you got the 6th pick right now in the draft, so maybe it ends up being a rookie.
That's wrong, by the way. He was not drafted by the Panthers. He was drafted by the Bills in the 80s.
Oh, that's right, because he was a part of those Super Bowls.
He led that comeback over the Oilers. That was the greatest comeback in NFL history before Saturday blew that lead against the Vikings.
That's Frank's vengeance. Jeff Saturday will have that associated with his name for the rest of the time. Anyway, he was 40, 33, and 1 in Indianapolis. So it's not like he was a bad coach there. They made the postseason a handful of times. They have made some questionable roster decisions, particularly at the most important position. And I don't know, like what Frank is going to take away from the Colts job that he may not try again in Carolina. But I would say that given the cycle, the best-known commodity, not named Sean Payton, was Frank Reich, and Carolina landed him. David Tepper, though, also seems to be not a great NFL owner. He seems to be running a bit of a Ponzi scheme down there. Do you see that? Have you paid attention to any of the reporting about them, like, backing out of the practice facility that they committed to build and just leaving this, like, half-built structure out there in the suburbs of Charlotte? It's kind of wild. So he also appears to have some erratic behavior associated with him. But, you know, if we're doing owners by eccentricity, there's going to be a lot of crazy rich people out there. So, but I'm comfortable saying Frank Reich A. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the resume is enough there. Super Bowl champ as an offensive coordinator. There is enough of a sample size of some success in Indianapolis with the amount of quarterback turnover that he had.
Sean Payton to the Denver Broncos.
A, right? Has to be.
Well,
all you can do is look at resume and like perceived fit, right? The press conference. Because you can't sit here and actually predict what he's going to do. And nobody has a better resume than Sean Payton. That's unquestionable.
The only reason that I would say A as opposed to A plus is because you had to pay him reportedly $20 million a year.
And a draft pick.
And you had to trade draft picks to get him. So now you're kind of down tremendous as far as your draft is concerned. Your quarterback situation seems to be the seventh circle of hell. And Sean Payton can fix a lot of things, but if he ends up being like, nah, Russ isn't for me, let's Taysom Hill this thing, or something like that with a wide receiver that's on the Broncos roster, I don't know. But I honestly think like you could go A+ with that, if not for the substantial financial commitment and draft capital commitment that you had to make to get this guy.
But you'd be stuck with Russ regardless of who you hire as your head coach.
That is correct. Which is why I don't know that it's exclusively the reason that Demico Ryan was like, I don't know. I don't want that anchor around my neck.
Yeah, you got to win with what's here.
I was about to say, you don't want that to be your first. If you're Sean Payton as a veteran head coach who you know you're going to have a little more grace than, say, first-year head coach Demico Ryans or first-year head coach Jonathan Gannon or a circumstance like that, you are comfortable saying, yes, give me the Russ anchor. I will wear it like a chain.
That feels like the most appropriate spot to bring in a veteran, established head coach in the NFL, right? Like, okay, this thing has been a bleep show. We're going to do this my way.
I really don't even think you could do it with Frank Reich. Like, I think Denver and Sean Payton was the only thing that made the most sense because of how ugly a situation he is walking into, and you know Sean Payton is going to get continuous benefit of the doubt.
No more personal coaches, Russ.
But, like, hey, when you talk to coaches about that stuff, like, we throw words around like culture all the time without ever actually defining what culture means. But when you talk to coaches about this stuff, like, they legitimately talk about Sean Payton as somebody who's going to come in and just strip this thing down bare bones and build it back up the way that he sees fit. That's the kind you're talking about, organizational overhaul. And from a situation where you had shots on the sideline of Broncos players fighting each other and chirping at each other and yelling at each other, and you just got Hackett standing there with his headset on, his play sheet, his play menu over his mouth as he's hiding his great designs that allowed the Broncos to score like 13 points a game until they finally ended up canning him. It's just somebody has to be in charge there. Somebody who knows how to run a show like this has to be able to do so, and that's as much what you hire Sean Payton to do as it is to scheme offense for the $250 million quarterback. You got the two Eagles coordinators, and these are tough because, like, realistically, what do we know about Jonathan Gannon as two people here in Nashville, Tennessee? What do we realistically know about Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, the new Cardinals and Colts head coaches? Now, I will say, I would be willing to give them a baseline of a C in Indianapolis just because they didn't hire Jeff Saturday. Like, just because they didn't do the thing that we all thought it was almost certain that they were going to do. Like, I will give you a C for that fact alone. Jim Irsay, well done, or whomever is controlling or keeping Jim Irsay down. What if it's Jeff? What if it's Jeff? Like, Jeff had to get on the phone. Like, Jim wanted to hire Jeff, and Jeff's like, yeah, Jim, come on. Did you see that Vikings game? Come on, buddy. Like, just let me go back to do TV. It's a lot easier.
I just want to fish and be on TV.
I just want to fish and be on TV and have people talk about how blue my eyes are and not how ridiculous I look because you put out a never lost on a Saturday graphic.
I don't buy that, though. I don't buy that. I think Saturday wanted the job.
Oh, sure. Listen, it's an NFL. I'm making jokes. It's an NFL head coaching job. It's the whole reason he said yes. Because, okay, sure, I'll get a shot. Why not? Maybe I'm good at it. He wasn't, but, how rare a circumstance for anybody, even if it ends up being a mockery for every other coach who works in that profession to look around and be like, really, mother bleeper? Are you kidding me? I've been gutting it out as a quality control coach making $24,000 a year, and you're just going to go give it to your friend on ESPN? Bleep you. Which is, kind of the stuff that was swirling around the Colts' decision to hire Jeff Saturday the last time around. But as far as Steichen and Gannon go, I mean, Arizona, I have so many questions about the Cardinals. And apparently Kyler Murray is involved in, the coaching decisions now, if you remember that towards the end of the season.
Yeah,
that they were giving him well, I mean, listen, he got him to take out the homework clause because he threw a tantrum on the internet. So how am I to say, again, when it comes down to trusting organizations, I don't have any reason to trust them.
I don't know. The homework clause thing, that was just a PR nightmare more than anything.
No. I mean, it's a clear and obvious sign that you're trying to get your quarterback to be like, hey, bud, we'll pay you all the money, and we'll do it anyway. Just grow up a little bit. Do your job. That's not just bad PR. That's kind of a giant red flag that the quarterback needs or that the organization feels the need to put that in his contract.
I'm saying the reason for taking it out.
Oh, because, he went public with it.
Every sports talk station in the country was talking about that before Kyler said a word about it.
Well, but how did it get out there? Like, the Cardinals are not leaking that. That's coming somewhere from the Kyler Murray camp, for lack of a better term. All right, so we'll see how these coaching hires play out. We know what the recycle guys are in Frank Reich and Sean Payton. It's just a matter of how they go about two very, very different circumstances, and two of these things in the AFC South. It's going to be curious to see how it plays out. SEC observations, they're next. Let's do some SEC observations, shall we? Tennessee hosting number 1 Alabama tonight. Vanderbilt with a win. They are now 14-12 on the season, 4 straight over South Carolina yesterday. But I want to steal your thunder, buddy. What do you have prepared for this week's SEC observations? I assume hoops is the place that we're going.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Vanderbilt because, in particular, Liam Robbins is just red hot for the Commodores right now. Last night in that win, 75-64 over South Carolina, 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Against Florida, an 88-80 win over the weekend, 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Liam Robbins, in this 4-game win streak for Vanderbilt, has averaged 22.3 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game, and 4 blocks per game. He had 7 blocks in the win over Ole Miss that started this 4-game win streak. That was the game before Vanderbilt upset Tennessee in buzzer beater fashion a week ago today. So Liam Robbins has kind of been the catalyst. Appears as though they're buying into what Jerry Stackhouse is selling them, so to speak. And I don't know about the opportunity to get into the NCAA tournament. It feels like it would take a lot for Vanderbilt. They are 14-12 at the moment, and to pull up their schedule moving forward, there are some winnable games on the horizon. They host Auburn, who thrashed Missouri last night. I mean, that was a bloodbath, which isn't great for Tennessee fans to see after losing on their home floor to Mizzou on Saturday. Vanderbilt hosts Auburn. They travel to LSU, certainly a winnable game. They host Florida, who they've just beaten. They travel to Rupp Arena, and then they host Mississippi State. So it's tough to manufacture a scenario where Vanderbilt, can get close to 20 wins and get into the SEC tournament. Or, I'm sorry, the NCAA tournament. It's more of what can they do in the NIT, unless they were to go on some sort of run in the NCAA tournament, which would probably means Liam Robbins would have to sustain what he is doing, because that's been the issue all year for Jerry Stackhouse. They don't have the Scottie Pippen Jr. this year. And even last season, that was only enough to get them to the NIT quarterfinals. Liam Robbins has kind of been that guy as of late, but there's no question they are playing some really good ball right now.
There's Vandy Eli in the comment section. Don't look now. The doors are hot. That's right. It's true. It is worth watching. And like Stackhouse talked about this last year, the idea of making the NIT and playing postseason basketball, right? Which I would like for the bar to be higher at this point in the Stackhouse tenure, just slightly, than postseason basketball or NIT qualifying as postseason basketball. But I mean, that's certainly the case. And as you've seen, I do think you've seen growth in this season, certainly down the stretch. And we'll see how much they can sustain. They are doing impressive things right now on West End, particularly the ability to win on the road, no matter how down bad a team like South Carolina is. Now, turning our attention to Alabama and Tennessee, they are the top overall seed in bracketology. They're the number 1 team in the country. And what they have done so far is just be utterly dominant where it relates to conference play. Tennessee, we put this to a poll, and I'd be curious to know the results, Lucas, at Buck Rising on Twitter. What area do the Vols most need to improve in to be able to beat Alabama tonight? With a couple of different options there. Again, at Buck Rising is where you can vote on them.
So we laid out the options of perimeter defending, free throw shooting, and first half scoring, all of which have come back to bite the Vols in this recent stretch where they've lost 3 of their last 4. 53% so far, the majority say first half scoring. I think it's perimeter defending, considering what they're up against tonight in Alabama. 29%, that was the second most voted on option there in perimeter defending. Tennessee gave up 14 3-pointers against Missouri. The Tigers shot over 53% from beyond the arc. And it was one of those things that you're watching, and they are just red hot in the first half from 3, and you're thinking, okay, well, this isn't sustainable. They'll cool off at some point. They never did. They were red hot from beyond the arc throughout the course of that game. The same goes for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt found plenty of success shooting from 3 against Tennessee last Wednesday, pulling up those numbers. Tennessee gave up, of course, it's not going to load for me now. Tennessee gave up 10 of 25 from 3, good for 40% for Vanderbilt. So that had been something Tennessee had been really good at as of late was perimeter defending, and obviously that has slipped, giving up 14 and 10 three-pointers in each of their last 2 games, respectively. So here comes Alabama, the third best three-point shooting team in the SEC. They are firing at a mark of 35.1% from beyond the arc. A lot of that is Brandon Miller, but they have some spot shooters all over the roster coming out of Tuscaloosa. And Thompson Bowling's going to be rocking tonight. They're checkering Thompson Bowling Arena. It's going to be a great environment. Tennessee looking to bounce back, but that has just quietly been a big issue for Tennessee over the last couple of games. And then suddenly you look at the SEC standings, and 2 weeks ago, it felt unthinkable that Tennessee could finish outside of the top 4 and miss out on the double bye in the SEC tournament. It's not so unthinkable now. Tennessee is third in the standings behind Texas A&M, who's just continued to find ways to win in conference play. Auburn is the 4 seed as it stands in the SEC after winning last night at 8-5. So if Tennessee were to lose tonight, they would still remain the 3 seed because they have the head-to-head over Auburn. But Kentucky is kind of on everybody's heels at 7-5 in league play. Tennessee plays Kentucky on Saturday. So these next 2 games, critical for Tennessee's final seeding in the SEC, because it would be pretty disastrous for Tennessee to end up outside the top 4 in the league and go into the SEC tournament without that double bye.
Can you name for me the top 5 3-point percentage defenses in college basketball right now, in men's college basketball right now?
I'm trying to think of.
You've already talked about 3 of them.
We've talked about 3 of them?
Talked about 3 of them.
So 3 of them are in the SEC.
And that's correct.
Is Alabama one of them?
Alabama is one of them.
And Rick Barnes was talking about that this week. You talk about Brandon Miller. He's won SEC Freshman of the Week like 8 times already. They should just name the award after him at this point.
That dunk he had where he literally threw it at the basket as he came down with it. It's one of the most violent dunks I've seen this year.
Yeah, but that was one thing Rick Barnes has talked about this week is Alabama's really impressive defensively, and it gets overlooked because of the firepower that they have. Tennessee went up against one of the worst defensive teams in the SEC on Saturday against Mizzou, and was awful in the first half. They righted it. They scored over 50 in the second, obviously still came up short. But, yeah, Alabama, I guess, being up there. Is Kentucky up there as well?
No, Alabama. So here are the top 5 defenses when it comes to defending the 3-point.
In college basketball.
Defending the perimeter in college basketball. Hawaii is 5.
Nice. Go Rainbow Warriors.
Auburn is 4. Houston is 3. Bama is 2. Tennessee is still 1.
Yeah.
Even with these slides. Now, that's I think a great representation, and Vols fans will understand this, of why you don't take the season-long number, why you have to look at the last couple of games. Because those are the kind of things that are starting to crop up. And if you take the larger sample size, which is at this point, how many games have they played? Have they played 25 games at this point? 26 games?
Yeah, I would have to look at their exact record.
I know Tennessee hasn't won their 20th game yet. I don't know exactly their record. I know they have 19 wins on the season.
19-6.
Okay. So looking at Tennessee, that has been the thing that's been most reliable for them this season, but the thing that has slipped in the last couple of games and has allowed that margin for error where you're losing on back-to-back buzzer beaters to Vanderbilt and Missouri, who should have been you should have been able to handle those opponents. Although, Vandy, don't let the doors get hot, baby.
3-point defending has to be cleaned up tonight, as does free throw shooting. That has let Tennessee down, obviously late in games, but there's been plenty of moments in the SEC this year where Tennessee's missing 7, 8, 9 free throws in a game. That's got to be cleaned up if they want to knock off the number 1 team in the country. I believe it would be the 6th time in program history.
615-737-1045. We'll get to your phone calls on the Vols in Alabama coming up next. Also, the dumbest thing in sports this week.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans coaching staff is complete. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reported on Tuesday that Justin Outten will be hired as the team's running backs coach and running game coordinator. Outten spent last season as the Broncos offensive coordinator. Prior to that, he spent 3 years as the Packers tight ends coach. That makes 10 assistants that are either new to the staff or working under a different role for the Tennessee Titans heading into the 2023 season. The NFL hiring cycle is complete as far as head coaches go. Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon has officially been announced as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, all 5 coaching vacancies in the NFL have been filled. College basketball, Vanderbilt won its 4th straight game on Tuesday, 75-64 over South Carolina. Commodores improve to 14-12 in a big one tonight for the number 10 Tennessee Vols, hosting number 1 Alabama in Thompson-Boling Arena, a 6 p.m. tip that you can hear right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome in. Welcome back if you've been hanging out with us so far. You can hang out on the radio, Zone TV, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Jump in on the phone lines, 615-737-1045. So many different ways to consume us here on 104.5 The Zone. Either way, thank you for doing so. Get to the dumbest thing in sports this week here in just a moment, but given that the Basketballs have a massive game coming up tonight at Thompson-Boling Arena. Lucas has said the place is going to be checkered. Vols currently 3-point favorites at home over the number 1 team in the country, Alabama, at this point. We can talk about this game for a little bit. Voice of the Vols, Bob Kesling, going to be here in just a little bit as well. 12:20 is where you can hear Bob. We'll go to the phones. Rick in Hendersonville wants to talk about the Vols. Hey, Rick.
You just took my thunder, and that was that you guys hadn't mentioned the fact that Tennessee is a 3-point favorite. I think it's a win-win for anybody that's a Vols fan. Bet Alabama. That way, if Tennessee wins and you lose the Alabama bet, you don't care. But if Tennessee loses, you padded your pocketbook a little bit. That's all I got.
Hey, you know what? You're being savvy, Rick. That's a savvy veteran move.
Hedging bets with happiness.
I feel that's the only way that you can bet games that your favorite team plays in. But
Yeah.
you know how hard it would be, like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, you know how hard it would have been for me to bet on Purdue, like against Indiana? That would have done things to me in my soul that I don't know if I could justify. I don't know if
IU was favored in that
IU
game?
was favored in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but it wasn't 3. It was like 1.5 or something.
And ended up winning.
They ended up winning. It would have been I would have been visibly upset to bet on Purdue just so that I could financially feel better about the fact that Indiana lost to what has been the better basketball program in the state as of late.
That is curious. I get it's a road game, but just with how well Bama's been playing and the stretch Tennessee's been on, I think a lot of people were surprised to see Tennessee favored by a 3-pointer.
No, I really don't think so. Not in college basketball. It's just such a crapshoot. I take so little away from the weekly rankings update when they've played these 2 games a week or about 2 games a week. By the time we get to this, because just so much changes. And also you're dealing with 17, 18, and 19-year-olds in arenas filled with 20,000 people on the road in, Knoxville, Tennessee, or, Bloomington, Indiana, or wherever it is, right? Like, it's just such a That is the least reliable thing. A bunch of 17-year-old kids out there on a basketball court with 20,000 people screaming at them.
I understand, but you can only work with what you have, and what you have in front of you is a red-hot Alabama team that's playing as well, if not better, than anybody in the country, and a Tennessee team that not only has been struggling, but might be down some key players tonight. They haven't been officially ruled out, but Julian Phillips and Josiah Jordan-James are a big question mark to play tonight.
Phillips more likely than
Phillips, I
Triple J,
think,
yeah?
would be more likely. They've both been held out of stuff at practice this week in hopes to keep them healthy. But you talk about three-point defending, the length that both of those guys can bring, especially an experienced veteran defender like Josiah Jordan-James to kind of help stop the bleeding, so to speak, on the three-point shooting Tennessee's been allowing could be huge for the Vols if those guys can play. And Phillips, has got to get right and start scoring for this team.
Do it.
Do what?
What do you think?
Week on the Buck Rising Show.
Sure is. It's presented by Painter Ready Murfreesboro. Call for a quote 615-PAINTER or visit www.painterreadymurfreesboro.com. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? 615-737-1045. Go ahead and let us know. Just because football season's over does not mean that the world of sports is not just chock full of stupidity. It's running around all over the place. For example, I submit to you my dumbest thing in sports this week. It's me. I am my own dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas, I came in here on Monday. I said I'm not going to spend a ton of time relitigating the A.J. Brown trade, but I want to talk about him because I watched him in the Super Bowl and he looked fantastic and it made me sad. And I asked you the question, is this the last time that we will talk about A.J. Brown before football games are played? And you literally said to me what? Do you remember?
Please? Something along those lines?
You said, no, he's going to tweet something, then you're going to want to talk about it, and you're going to drag me into the muck with this again. He did, in fact, tweet something. But this one, it's just objectively hilarious. Now, I don't know if he's since deleted the tweet as is his wont from time to time. But yesterday, for those of you who celebrate, was Valentine's Day. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, recent Super Bowl champion Juju, put out on Twitter a Valentine's Day card. It's a picture of James Bradberry. James Bradberry, famously Eagles corner, even more famously the corner who committed the hold at the end or with under 2 minutes to play that allowed Kansas City to get a first down, kneel out the clock, kick a game-winning field goal in the Super Bowl. A less than dramatic ending to what had been otherwise a phenomenal game. So he puts out this Valentine's Day card with James Bradberry's picture on it. And it says, I'll hold you when it matters most. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, from Juju Smith-Schuster to the world. So A.J. Brown gets a hold of this, yeah? And he tweets, first off, congratulations. Y'all deserve it. This is lame. You was on the way out the league before Mahomes restructured your career on your one-year deal. TikTok boy. I don't know why TikTok boy makes me laugh.
Did he say Mahomes restructured your career?
Oh no, it's resurrected.
Oh, resurrected your career. Okay.
But
I would have loved that.
Although a restructured
would have been funny.
Restructured would have been funny. No, I think I just misread that.
That would have been great wording by AJ.
I think I think that's how resurrected is spelled.
Yeah, it resurrected your career. That makes sense.
You was on the way out the league before Mahomes resurrected your career on your one-year deal, TikTok boy.
Then he congratulates him again, right?
He admitted that he grabbed, but you don't act like you're like that or ever was. But congratulations again.
It's a good chirp by AJ.
I'm so stupid because you're right. Literally, you said it on Monday. He's going to tweet something again. You're going to want to talk about it. But at least it's not just me. It's the entire league that's now gravitating towards A.J. Brown's, maybe they'll be deleted, maybe they won't be deleted tweets.
AJ won that exchange, I think. That was just stupid by Juju. What are you doing, man?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's awesome. I think that's objectively. But again, I hate sportsmanship. I think it has no place in sports. I want more of this. more Valentine's Day cards from Juju Smith-Schuster, who didn't really do much in the Super Bowl, other than to tweet, "I'll hold you when it matters most," with a picture of James Bradbury. That I'm here for.
My dumbest thing in sports this week, NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre was initially reported by Daily Mail, and now it has basically been announced by Pat McAfee, by Shannon Sharp, that Brett Favre is suing both Shannon Sharp and Pat McAfee for defamatory allegations that were made over his involvement in a welfare fraud scheme that was worth millions of dollars. To refresh your memory, Brett Favre, a welfare scheme in the state of Mississippi, essentially frauding or stealing, however you want to put it, welfare funds meant for the less privileged in the state of Mississippi in order to get a new volleyball facility at Southern Miss, where Brett Favre went to school and where his daughter plays volleyball. So Pat McAfee, as he does, was laughing about it, joking about it, saying things about it, talking about it like a lot of people were, Shannon Sharp as well. And Brett Favre is claiming that Pat McAfee and Shannon Sharp's comments were defamatory. I think we should bring in our in-house attorney, Dan Lust, for this.
We haven't talked to Danny in so long.
I'm going to text Danny.
As soon as the pervert quarterback found a home, we stopped calling Dan, and I feel bad about it.
So Dan tweeted the other day, not only does Favre have to show that Pat McAfee acted with actual malice, essentially that he knowingly lied, he must also show that Pat was stating facts and not just his opinion. Dan Lust goes on to say, I will put Pat as a minus 500 favorite over Brett Favre in this whole thing. So, stealing welfare money from the underprivileged Mississippi to build a volleyball facility, and then trying to sue people for pointing at you and calling you out for stealing welfare money for the underprivileged people of Mississippi. Brett Favre is my dumbest thing in sports this week. I hope he goes bankrupt and loses that lawsuit to both of them. And I will text Dan Lust right now to give us some more clarity on the subject.
Please do text our attorney, because now you're going to be implicated in this lawsuit, I'm sure. Brett Favre is going to send something to the radio station now that you've just wished him bankruptcy or wished bankruptcy upon him.
Have I acted with actual malice?
Yes, it sounds like it. In fact.
Am I knowingly lying?
Oh, every day, every time you do one of those updates and you say something incorrectly.
Oh, no.
Yeah, tough scene.
Don't do that to me.
Has anybody had a more unlikable turn than Brett Favre?
My goodness, man.
I mean, he went from, okay, let's point and laugh at the Copperfit commercials, and all right, Brett Favre's out here sending Richard pics. When, said Richard is not something you want photographed on the internet on a regular basis. Richard pics, by the way, is a throwback joke. We haven't alluded to that moment.
One of the first jokes in the show's history.
I mean, it is, for those of you who are unfamiliar,
I think you figure it out.
Can they? I feel like the context is important. I feel like the context is important for me to say that somebody sent me what they believe to be Isaiah Wilson's Richard pics. You can figure out the context for Richard if you so choose. Somebody DM'd that to me on Twitter, and we started making jokes about Richard pics. So yes, Brett Favre has a documented Richard pics incident out there on the internet, outside of stealing from the underprivileged to build a volleyball facility at a university where his daughter played volleyball. That is an important note. And now suing Shannon Sharp and Pat McAfee.
Two of the biggest names in media. It's a great look for you, Brett.
He just seems to be a bit of a bleep hole, Brett Favre, right? Anyway, we can talk about this. We got phone calls on the dumbest thing in sports.
We should talk about this with an attorney present. I'll text Dan.
Yes, please call Dan so we don't get in legal trouble and then we both don't get sued by Brett Favre and his Richard picks. Your call's next. Dumbest thing in sports this week. Made possible by Painter Ready Murfreesboro. Call for a quote 615-PAINTER. Visit painterreadymurfreesboro.com. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? We got caught up. We were spinning our wheels on the Brett Favre story that we haven't really talked about, so we'll call our lawyer. What, has Dan hit you back yet? He's usually pretty good.
He has not hit me back yet.
He's got like 16 different jobs now. You see he's like teaching.
He's a busy man.
Well, hopefully not too busy for us. We never actually paid his retainer, so perhaps he's forsaken us as the show's official lawyer.
We love the fact that he doesn't charge.
He's the only lawyer in my life that doesn't.
He's like, I charge, you just don't pay.
That's right. Your Venmos keep bouncing. Eric in Nashville is next with the dumbest thing in sports. Hey, Eric.
One other person I can think of who was once beloved is kind of like everybody tries to avoid him a lot, like the plague is O.J. Simpson. So that's another one.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, my dumbest thing in sports, I actually had another thing, but I saw this Monday night, and this Super Bowl related too. And, guys, let me tell you this. We all have that family member or relative that does stupid things, acts goofy, that drives us nuts, and just embarrasses us. And I think you know where I'm going. My dumbest thing in sports is Patrick Mahomes' younger brother, Jackson Mahomes. So after the Super Bowl, when the confetti was going down and Mahomes was out on the field hugging the Eagles players and shaking hands with them and everything, brother Jackson comes dancing, and he has Patrick Mahomes' daughter with him in his arms. And, of course, Patrick Mahomes sees him doing that, and he basically grabs her from him. Not too happy about it. Doesn't have a happy look, but it doesn't end there. After the Super Bowl trophy presentation and everything, Patrick Mahomes is being interviewed by the NFL Network, and he's talking to him on the microphone. Well, his younger brother Jackson comes dancing into the shot. It's just like, come on, dude. It's not about you. It's about him. The only way we know about you is because you're Patrick Mahomes' younger brother. You're 22. He doesn't have a job. Patrick and his dad have tried to talk to him before, but he just does what he wants to do. He's just an attention hog. So you, Jackson Mahomes, you're my dumbest thing in sports, and I really feel bad for Patrick. Y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for the call, Eric. He has been notably absent, Jackson Mahomes, from, like, visibility. Have you noticed that this year? There has been as few Jackson Mahomes sightings as any other season I can remember. Like, his wife's not really out there. Now, they have a kid now, so.
Well, remember that there was that report in the offseason, and Pat came out and said this is categorically false, but there was that report that Mahomes had, like, asked his wife and brother to, like, chill. And take a back, maybe take a step back from the spotlight. And he came out and said, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. That this isn't true. But they have been out of the spotlight a little bit more.
And, until they won the Super Bowl.
Until they won the Super Bowl. And then all bets are off.
He's back tick-tocking in the background.
Were you going to say ticking the talk?
No.
Yes, you were. I think you were.
TikTok boy. Robert, what's the dumbest thing in sports this week?
My dumbest thing in sports is also dealing with Patrick Mahomes, but more so what happens when you win the Super Bowl, right? I'm going to Disney World. They've been saying it for forever. What my dumbest thing is, how has no other vacation destination stepped up to – you don't think Universal Studios is cool? You don't think somebody wants to ride the Incredible Hulk? Like, Disney World, if you're an adult, is kind of lame. Like, unless you're going to Pleasure Island, like, which sounds like something Disney would not have, but unless you're going to the 21 and up club, like, what's the fun thing? They don't even have what's that log flume ride? They changed it now. It's like Princess and the Frog. It's like Space Mountain, Princess and the Frog, and the Arctic Excursion or whatever the Yeti roller coaster is.
I liked the Aerosmith ride as a kid.
See.
Isn't that Universal?
No,
I don't think
that's
Disney.
That's where the Hollywood drop is. The elevator drop is.
The Hollywood deal.
Oh, yeah. Or you could go to, what's the Drinking Around the World?
That's also Universal.
That's Epcot.
No, that's Epcot. That's Epcot. So everybody
you
goes
can go
to
get like $16 beers at Germany or whatever.
Which is nothing to him. That dude's got a $150 million contract. Like, I'll take 100 of those. But, like, they always go to Magical Kingdom. Like, you can go to Animal Kingdom. Go see Bug's Life, go on a safari.
I mean, what do you want him to get up there on the podium with Terry Bradshaw and say, I'm going to Sandals.
I'm going to Lego World.
Yes. I'm going to Japan.
Well, Japan is the least funny of those. How did you land on the least funny?
I had to make you guys look good.
All right, Shadows.
Oh!
It is what kind of monopoly? It's because it's not even on Disney Air. Like the Super Bowl isn't on ABC. It's on Fox this year. Who in Disney, what Mickey Mouse, literally, what hold does Mickey Mouse have on Football Society or Championship Society where anytime somebody wins a ring, they're going to Disney World?
How long have they been doing that? After the Super Bowl, he's back out of the shadows. How long has that been a thing?
It just sounded like you stepped on his foot or something.
Sounded like my cat when he's like wants to go outside.
What about Six Flags? What about Busch Gardens? What about any of those places? Like, why Disney World? They just have a hold on it. And Mahomes is the most Disney-esque quarterback. Like, if they were going to make a cartoon about somebody.
Because he sounds like a Muppet.
He sounds like Kermit. Like, Heidi ho, it's Patrick Mahomes here. But, like, if Jalen Hurts.
Did you just say Heidi ho?
Heidi, or whatever he says. Like, I can do Miss Piggy, too. Hi-ya! That's when she gets mad. But, like, what if Jalen Hurts won MVP or the Eagles won it? Yeah. I can't see him up there on the – he's too sexy. He's got, like, the Jordan Hoop earring. Yeah. He would have to be somewhere cool.
God, that dude does ooze, like –
machismo.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is I think of all the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks Super Bowl contending quarterbacks, like Jalen Hurts is most Mr. Steal Your Girl.
For
like
sure.
There is no –
And the funny thing is, Russell Wilson's the guy that has actually stolen someone's girl. I would have never pictured that.
Which is just the cheesy, which is how I know he's just a fraud.
Have you seen Sierra on any socials? It is rubbing off on him. She is getting lame by osmosis through Russell Wilson. Like, just hanging around him is making her lame.
Her TikTok is so bad.
It's so bad.
And it should not be.
You know he's in the background like, you go, baby. Be unlimited. Sierra Country. Let's ride.
Let's ride.
Sierra Country.
Oh, Chuck in Clarksville. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Go ahead, Chuck.
Hey, Buck. Robert. I mean, ESPN is owned by Disney and ABC, and they've been doing this for 25, 30 years, maybe 40
Chuck,
years.
but the Super Bowl's on Fox. It's not on Disney. It's not on the ABC.
I know, but I'm telling you, the NFL's got an arrangement. I mean, they get paid money by Disney to do that.
It's the NFL.
Okay.
It's the NFL. It's not the Fox. It's the NFL has done this for 40 years that they've sent the winning MVP to Disney World.
Okay.
It's not about Fox. Fox is Disney's been doing NFL longer than Fox.
Well, Chuck, let me be honest with you. That don't mean I have to like it. I don't give a Chuck where they go.
Well,
don't laugh at him, Chuck. It only makes it worse.
To Universal.
Go to Universal. Me and you will go, Chuck. See
the
you there.
first quarterback to say I'm going to Disney World after winning the Super Bowl was Phil Simms.
What year?
87.
He also looks like a Disney creation.
1987.
No, he doesn't.
He looks like he'd be a news reporter on, like, The Incredibles or something. Like, he looks like a soft.
Phil Simms is the least cartoon character-looking human being of all time.
Are you kidding me? He looks like a cartoon characterization of a cigarette. He just looks like a pencil. He looks like something that would be sweeping up around the Beauty and the Beast castle.
No.
He looks exactly like a Disney character.
Did you watch Cartoon Network growing up?
Of course.
Ed, and Eddie?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He's Plank.
Stop it.
He's Plank. Phil Simms gives off wooden.
Double D and boys.
Which ruins any chance of us getting former Super Bowl winning quarterbacks Phil Simms on the radio show. But, like, just every time I see him on that CBS pregame show, and maybe it's a CBS thing. Like, they tried to put Nate Burleson on there to give it a little bit of juice, but it's just a bunch of stiffs up there. Like, Phil Simms gives off to me wooden and stiff. That's what I think of every time I see that man on a panel like that.
Jim Nance would also be a great Disney character.
Jim Nance is not. You are picking the least likely cartoon characters.
Are you kidding me? Hello, friends.
That's not,
Welcome to the 100-Acre Woods with Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, actually, I like that.
Okay, he's the voice.
He's the narrator.
He's the narrator. He's not the cartoon character. You never see the narrator.
Okay,
unless
his
he's
voice.
Unless he's the snowman in Rudolph.
There
like
you go.
The cartoon Rudolph.
And let me tell you something, that snowman was fresh as hell. He had like a pocket watch. Like, bro, why do you need to know the time? It's cold. You're a snowman. Where do you have to be?
So have you settled on what you would like the champions to say after the Super Bowl?
Where do you want to send them?
We're going to Barbados. Like, I don't know, somewhere cool. I don't have to think of this stuff. I'm not smart. Like, I'm here to make observations about the world, and somebody else is supposed to fix it.
Mayor of Jolton tweets us, what I've learned today from the show, Phil Simms is made of wood. Plank from Ed, Ed and Eddie. That is who I think of when I think of Phil Simms. Kelly in Lebanon has the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Yeah, guys, dumbest thing in sports this week, as in every week and every day, is the daily phone call from Eric.
Oh.
Eric, you call in every day, every station, every show. Get a life, get a hobby.
Whoa.
Do something. But can we go one day without hearing a phone call from you?
Kelly, caller on caller violence.
Damn, Kelly. What did Eric do to you?
Eric is the nicest man in the world.
Eric's our guy.
Does he call every show? Oh, I thought we had this relationship with Eric.
Well, he chimes in with Blaine and Mickey, too. I love how engaged Eric is with us. I feel like Eric's calls you always deliver.
Kelly, I don't.
You're in the minority. We all like
We all like Eric.
yeah. I like Chuck, but Eric's cool too.
Who do we can't do favorite callers.
No. It's like kids. Like, some of them are mean, some of them play baseball in the house and break a vase, but you love them all.
We do give
but
some.
you have favorite. Like, I don't have children, so maybe this would make me a bad parent, but like, you're lying to yourself if you have multiple children and one of them is not favorite over the other.
Do you have a favorite cat?
Bingo.
Yes.
You're in my mind.
Which one's your favorite?
Frankie.
No. What's wrong with the other one?
Leo's great, but Frank's my girl. Frank's my homie.
I have a favorite cat too.
See?
Winston's my dog.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like, okay, Winston gets all the new toys, and then Paris is just like this little cat. You know, she's just always upset, always snooty, but Winston wants to get his butt smacked. He wants to get his head scratched. He's just a good cat.
I don't know how we got here from your dumbest thing in sports this
I
week.
love it, though.
Shadows.
I love it. Whoa!
That one sounded like a trip and fall type situation. It is. I just can't believe that Kelly came out here and took out Eric. I had no idea. Honestly, it does make me feel a little cheap, though, to know that Eric is calling every other show. Here I thought that we had regulars like that, and Eric was one of ours, but no, it's just, we're just on when Eric wants to on. Who's on?
Eric's online, too.
Eric's online, too? Now, wait just a damn minute.
Now, we never do. We don't allow double calls.
Now, wait just a damn minute. I'm not breaking rules. There has to be. We live in a society,
but I think, and I agree with the no double call rule. I think that is a good rule. But today, I think we have never had a caller get called out like that.
Yes, we have. Darrington gets called out every time he calls the show.
Who?
Darrington.
Well, that's different. Darrington's a heel. That felt very personal, what just happened to Eric there. I think Eric has the right to defend himself.
This is what you want to do today? I had a whole Tannehill leverage topic prepared, and you want to derail the show by making the caller. You're basically hosting a cockfight on here, is what you're doing with callers. Like, what are you doing out here? Allowing multiple calls. You're breaking your own rules. You're sacrificing.
Let's get Jerry Springer with it.
Okay. Jerry. Which line is he on? It doesn't say. 2. Okay. Eric, your opportunity to respond.
I had not planned to go on the air, guys, but the reason I call in, I'm just being honest, I do have a life. What's the issues with me, guys? I had to have hip surgery because I had both my hips operated on. I'm not working right now. I don't know if I'll ever work again. That's one of the reasons you hear me on the radio a lot, because I love calling in, guys.
So
I call a lot of shows. I do, but I don't call every single show every single day. I've got certain shows I do call in. If you don't like listening to the radio, don't listen. That's all I'll say, because I'm gonna keep calling in.
Hell yeah.
That's all I got to say. Take care, y'all guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Kelly, he's had a hip surgery. You attacked a man who is laid up. We are trying to keep this man entertained as he recovers from double hip surgery. He may never work again. And Kelly's out here, get a life. Shameful.
We stand with Eric.
Do we stand? So collectively, we stand with Eric?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Eric just basically came in here and blessed his
I mean,
heart.
we love Kelly, too, but we do stand with Eric.
Buster has tweeted us, screw you, Kelly. Come on, guys. Eric's that dude. Goodness.
The chat is staunchly defending Eric.
Okay, well, Eric is one of us. He is one of us. Kelly, you can be too, but you also cannot attack the people who have hip surgery and are listening to the radio to kill time. Paul has the dumbest thing in sports this week. Hey, Paul.
Hi. I think the Tennessee player, I think his name was Phillips, who could have scored against Vandy and probably won the game for Tennessee, who decided to dribble away instead. I think that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Well, Rick Barnes talked about that after the Vandy game. Now, that's been some time. Thank you for the call, Paul. Did you hear what he said, Lucas?
Yeah, Julian Phillips passing up the dunk.
Or not the missed dunk, the passed up
Yeah,
dunk.
he didn't even go for it.
I mean, like, how do you – what's the coaching point on that beyond, like, you just got to take the bucket?
You got to take the bucket.
It's there for you. You have a nearly can't-miss shot, the highest percentage shot available to you in college basketball. You cannot pass up that look in a game like that.
And speaking of Julian Phillips, Jimmy Hyams, who will be on Blaine and Mickey today, by the way, at 1:20, tweeted 20 minutes ago, Tennessee wing Josiah Jordan-James is out for the Alabama game with his ankle injury, and per UT assistant coach Rod Clark, Julian Phillips is a game-time decision with a hip flexor.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bob Kesling, maybe we'll have more information by the time Bob joins us at 12:20. Who's to say? But Tennessee hosting number 1 Alabama tonight in college basketball. That coverage that you can hear right here on 104.5 The Zone after 3HL concludes. They're not breaking into 3HL early for Vol Network pregame, are they?
I believe so, 5:30.
Are they?
Vol Network pregame.
So Vol Network pregame, you can listen throughout the course of the afternoon. So once 3HL wraps up, you will get right to the Vol Network coverage of the Vols hosting number 1 Alabama in college basketball. Let's talk about, we haven't talked about the Titans quarterback situation. There's been a lot of reports around trade interest in Ryan Tannehill and other quarterbacks who Tennessee might be interested in acquiring. We'll get to some of those reports coming up next. So we've gotten derailed. Shocking to nobody. But that's all right. We'll get back on track here in just a second. Voice of the Vols, Bob Kesling. 12:20 today. Tennessee and Alabama later this evening. Phone calls 615-737-1045 before we start to talk about quarterback trades that may or may not be on the horizon. Thatcher in Franklin is next. Hey, Thatcher.
Yo, what up? I just wanted to say one thing about dumbest things that happen in sports about the Juju Smith-Schuster tweet. I know I saw that, and I saw Gardner Johnson replied to it and said, yeah, I had more interceptions and touchdowns this year. That's all I got to say. I think that was so stupid on Juju's behalf, but I think Gardner got him there.
So, it was C.J. Gardner Johnson, not James Bradbury, who James Bradbury was the one who was memed.
He's the one who the holding call was on.
Yes. C.J. Gardner Johnson, another defensive back for the Eagles, responded to the tweet and said, I had more interceptions than Juju had touchdowns this year, which is factually accurate. So
Juju's career arc has been interesting. From the the spark in Pittsburgh, and then like AJ said, I don't know if he was almost out of the league, but he was he became an afterthought a little bit.
He is on a 1-year deal in Kansas City. Like he's an unrestricted free agent. Like he had an opportunity to go to the Chiefs. His free agency was weird. Because I remember when his rookie deal with the Steelers was coming up, he had an opportunity to go to the Chiefs. He ended up going back to Pittsburgh, I think, on a 1-year deal, then joining the Chiefs on another 1-year deal, if memory serves.
So he would have been a part of a Chiefs receiving core that included Tyreek Hill?
Yes.
If that's true?
Yes. I think that's true. I'd have to go back and look at free agency notes from a couple of years ago. But, like, I've done the Juju to the Titans thing before in free agency cycles past. So I think I don't know. I don't know what to make of Juju. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent again. Would you give Juju $7 million to come play here?
$7 million for like a 1-year deal?
Yep.
That's a good question.
I get questions about wide receivers in free agency all the time, and my answer is like something between $5 and $9 million. That's really as much as I'd be willing to let them extend themselves, given what their cap constraints are. I would rather see them draft a wide receiver, but if you're looking for veteran options that you can rely upon, something in the $5 to $7 million range.
What was the number on Robert Woods on what you can save?
Oh, it's up there. Let me pull up Spot Track quickly. I don't know what Juju's making this year off the top, or did make this year off the top of my head, but I know it's less than Robert Woods cost. 4 years, $65 million was the contract that they traded for. They can release Robert Woods with a savings of, $12 million. He's 14.6 against the cap. The dead number is 2.6. So they can save $12 million by letting this dude walk. I honestly think he's the second easiest decision beyond Lewan on cap casualties this year. I think it's Taylor, Woods. Well, no, let me change that. It's Taylor, Cunningham, Woods. But those are the top three that I think they need to move on from.
Yeah, Smith-Schuster only had a $3 million cap hit this season.
On a 1-year deal. Did he, in fact, sign, if you look at the transaction, are you on Spot Track?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the transactions tab, like off to the right.
Right.
Did he sign a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh? Am I right about that?
He did. 1 year, $8 million.
Okay.
In March 2021 in Pittsburgh. And then a year later, almost to the date, 1 year, $3.76 million with the Chiefs.
So, just out of curiosity, and we'll have more time to talk about this, the wide receiver market is one that is kind of, unclear right now, unrestricted free agent-wise anyway. Just looking around the league, the best options are who? Juju? I think Juju's probably the name that you put at the top of the list here. Zach Pascal? Paris Campbell, I guess. But Paris Campbell hadn't done anything in Indianapolis. Guys like Randall Cobb, Nelson Aguilar, Sterling Shepard, who is sneaky old. You know Sterling Shepard's 30? He's been in the league for a while.
Yeah, I feel like he's been around.
Anyway, Julio, don't want to live that life again. Miles Boykin, T.Y. Hilton, like it's just, yeah. You can go out and get, this is a good year for one of those like mid-market and maybe a little below-market contracts for a veteran wide receiver. But you shed that $12 million when you cut Robert Woods. If they cut Robert Woods, they should cut Robert Woods. Shed that $12 million and spend it more judiciously at a couple of other positions, and one of those positions can include a lower-priced free agent wide receiver. But, like, I'm not one of these people who's saying draft a wide receiver in the first round or go out and get a premier guy. Who are the premier guys this year? There's not one. I mean, and last year, think about it. Devontae Adams was a free agent? Did they trade for Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I believe they traded for him.
But there was a contract situation tied up in that, right? Because they were waiting to get Rodgers done before they signed Adams to a deal. I don't know why I can't remember that.
Yeah, you might be right, actually, because he signed a 5-year deal with the Raiders, and last year was the first year of that deal.
So, like, the top wide receiver moves that we all, got in a huff about.
No, it was a trade. Okay, so he was traded to Vegas from Green Bay for 2022 first rounder and a 2022 second rounder. He signed a 5-year extension with the Raiders after the trade.
So they were looking at extending him in Green Bay and then ultimately decided to move him.
Speaking of that, think about how short-lived the Adams Carr connection was that, was the talk of that trade.
Well, now they're talking about Rodgers to the Raiders. At least Devontae Adams is talking about Rodgers to the Raiders. He's like, hey, I just got here. Don't leave me out to dry with God knows what at quarterback next year. What's the Raiders' second option at quarterback? Jarrett Stidham? Is that a thing still? Oof. So, yeah, draft a wide receiver, go get a veteran contract that's manageable, get something that you can pair comfortably and that can be relied upon to be out there with Treylon Burks, and hope that Treylon Burks is more reliable is not the word that I want to use, available. Hope that Treylon Burks is more available in 2023. Reliable is not an unfair – it's an unfair characterization of what Treylon Burks was last season. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Let's talk about Ryan Tannehill. Let's talk about leverage that he has and teams that may be trying to trade for the Titans quarterback in what is a very, very complicated quarterback market now. 615-737-1045 is the number. Would you prefer the Titans keep Ryan Tannehill or move him at this point? I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 11:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Coaching hirings, staffs being filled out across the NFL, including the Tennessee Titans, whose coaching staff is complete. It was reported yesterday by Tom Pelissero of NFL Network that Justin Outen will be hired as the Titans running backs coach and running game coordinator. Outen spent the 2022 season as the Broncos offensive coordinator. Prior to that, he spent 3 years as the Packers tight ends coach. Around the league, it has been made official in Miami. The Dolphins hiring former Broncos head coach Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator under Mike McDaniel. Number 10, Tennessee has lost 3 of its last 4. They will look to get back on track against the number 1 team in the country tonight. Alabama heads to Knoxville for a 6 p.m. tip-off. You can hear it right here on The Zone, courtesy of the Vol Network. Belmont in action tonight as well, hosting Evansville at the Curb Center at 6:30. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and you're home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Third down on this Wednesday. Wrapping it up here, final hour of us at least, with you. Lucas, Robert, myself. Jump in if you want. 615-737-1045. That's the number. Bob Kesling, voice of the Vols, is going to be here in 19 minutes from now. Big game for Tennessee coming up at Thompson Bowling Arena tonight. Meanwhile, haven't really spent a ton of time on the Titans today, but we might as well take a look at some stuff. Seeing that feels like a couple teams want a piece of your quarterback. How about that? The guy that you can't get rid of doesn't look so bad if you're a New York Jet. Or maybe a Carolina Panther. Perhaps even a Tampa Bay Buccaneer as they try and figure out what the hell to do with their quarterback situations. Tampa, by the way, is the biggest cluster bleep of any of those. Now, I just remember that Kyle Trask is the only one under contract.
Yeah,
there.
what did they do?
What do you mean? I just told you, Tannehill. That's what I'm saying. Like this trade, and there's been reports out there about like what kind of package New York is offering. That's not anything that's been credibly verified. So I have no interest in talking about that until such time as the reporting on that is more concrete. But a couple of different teams exploring Tannehill as an option, just as the Titans are exploring, for example, according to reports, Derek Carr as an option. Or rather, the better way to say this is that Derek Carr's agent expects there to be interest from a bunch of teams that are exploring their quarterback situation and included the Titans in his discussions with whomever is disseminating that information. So now, I mean, even Atlanta, like Desmond Ridder doesn't do anything for me. Does he for you? I'd totally look at the Falcons as a place where that could work. In fact, Tannehill probably would love to go there. That'd be a better situation for him. The play caller that he had his greatest success under, an offense that's built very, very much like that, and better skill position players already.
Good run game.
It could be a thing. We'll see. But the idea that somebody's going to have to assume that contract, because ideally, you want to have your quarterback situation figured out before June 1st. Because June 1st, they can outright release him, them being the Titans, and save $27 million against the cap. Straight up. That'd be pretty nice, wouldn't it? But would you rather have $27 million or would you rather have a quarterback situation that's solid? Because $27 million sounds like a lot of money in any other arena other than the NFL, where for a quarterback, I mean, that's not what he cost this year. He's against the cap for 36 and change. But $27 million in savings sounds like a big amount, and really, it would only just get you clear of this year's salary cap. So it's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. So if the Jets are actually interested in doing anything beyond having their pro scouting staff explore the possibility of Ryan Tannehill, because now people are trying to draw connections between every quarterback and the Jets. Oh, they hired Nathaniel Hackett. It must be to lure Aaron Rodgers. Oh, they added Todd Downing. That must be for Derek Carr or Ryan Tannehill. What do you mean? Stop it. Stop it. Just stop. And by the way, this was brought to our attention a couple of years ago, I think, when Downing got hired. The comments about from Derek Carr about Todd Downing, not necessarily glowing. So I don't know that connection could be just something that is, not that it resolved is probably the wrong word, but just something that one could assume because they've previously spent time together. Emmett Jones says it on YouTube. Man, if I'm Arthur Smith, Tannehill will at least get me the division title. Hell yes. In that division, the NFC South, who's the best quarterback in there right now?
There is not a single concrete quarterback situation in that division.
Jameson Dalton, no. Mariota is not. I think he's a free agent, isn't he? Either way, Desmond Ridder, no. Sam Darnold, no. And then Kyle Trask, no.
What's the best? That's a good poll question. Maybe for tomorrow. What's the best as it stands? The best quarterback situation in the NFC South as of today. I mean, it's Jameis and Dalton, obviously.
But I don't think Dalton's under contract. I don't think Jameis is either.
Oh, so it's zero. It's nobody. It's Taysom Hill.
No, who's the? Oh God, it was always Taysom Hill. No, who's the other one? Isn't it Ian Book a Saint?
Ian Book is this. No,
he's an Eagle.
He's an Eagle. He's an Eagle.
He's an Eagle. That's right. I saw him on their inactives list.
Yeah.
Anyway, man. So all that to say, Ryan Tannehill's got some pretty decent leverage here in Tennessee. And we asked Joe Corey, the former NFL agent, if he was negotiating on behalf of Ryan Tannehill. How much leverage does your side exactly have? This was Joe Corey on yesterday's show.
Well, if they start talking pay cut or release, then what the agent's going to do is he's going to engage in tampering. That's technically what it'll be. He's going to call around, get an idea of the lay of the land. And if there's a team that's willing to make him whole and give him an extension, then he's going to tell you guys to kick rocks. That's basically what it would go from there. From a pure restructure standpoint, since they added 2 voiding dummy years with the last restructure, they could do a restructure where they chop his base salary down to league minimum or close to it and pick up $17 million plus a cap room by taking, we'll say, 25.5 or $25.75 million in signing bonus and spreading it out over 3 years. A base salary turning the signing bonus, spreading it out over 3 years and kicking the can down the road. I think that's maybe the direction you're going. I kind of think if you were going to just hit the reset button, you don't promote internally with your offensive coordinator. You go outside the organization and find a new offensive coordinator. And I think I read that Vrabel's been keeping Tannehill in the loop. What was going on with that decision.
That's correct.
Which suggests that he's not going anywhere this year.
So that's the informed opinion of a former agent talking about the situation, the different ways that Ryan Tannehill could end up either here or elsewhere in 2023. So his leverage is substantial because the quarterback market in the NFL right now is a mess. And there's only so many of these dudes to go around. How many? I mean, we're only still talking about 3 first-round quarterbacks definitively, right? In however order you want to order them. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis seems to be the most popular way to kind of evaluate them as prospects, with Levis being the biggest projection among them. So the idea that you're just going to stumble into a Brock Purdy somewhere in the NFC South and it's going to fix your quarterback situation, no. Veteran options this year are fascinating. Rodgers being the best of them, the biggest name, but you've already taken out half the teams. You've taken out an entire division if you're the NFC South because Green Bay isn't interested in sending him anywhere in the conference. So you've already eliminated half the teams, or at least half the teams, that are going to be trying to jockey for new quarterbacks this year. And it puts Ryan Tannehill in a spot where he's probably the second best option of trade block guys that we talk about. I mean, who else is being discussed that way? Derek Carr just got released last night or yesterday afternoon.
You're talking about quarterbacks
I'm talking
across
about
the league.
quarterbacks, yeah. Like, who else is being talked about is like Trey Lance, maybe, but not now with Brock Purdy being done for at least 6 months.
So, Rodgers, Tannehill.
I mean, Lamar tag and trade, but that's been pretty quiet. They still haven't officially tagged him. So I have no idea what else is out there other than Tannehill and Rodgers.
Unless the Bears were to just pivot, right, and trade Fields.
That's just it's possible. It is possible, but it sounds like everything that they have, all their jockeying publicly and privately has been that they're riding with Fields for the foreseeable future. And as long as he's not expensive, I think they can continue to get away with that. Carson Wentz, are they going to try and move him again?
I mean, Washington, is he a free agent, Wentz?
No, they traded for that contract.
Right. Well, Washington's going into this season with Sam Howell as their starter. So
they could ride with Wentz as a backup. You could debate the merits of that.
And that's right now. That's until there's a better option, right? Like, I bet the odds of Sam Howell being the starter day one in Washington are not that great, but that's what they're saying right now.
Yeah, people are saying Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a free agent. I'm talking about quarterbacks under contract.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks under contract that are being actively discussed as trade targets now that Carr's a free agent.
It's really, nationally, it's really just Rodgers right now.
No, national Tannehill is included in this. Absolutely included in this. We're not the only ones talking about moving Tannehill. People in New York, credible people in New York are talking about the idea of how, if they can't pull the Rodgers thing off, what's the best option? Ryan Tannehill. And that would be a far less expensive acquisition, both in terms of cap space and from a draft capital standpoint. You're putting him into an offense that's ready to go, and one would assume, you can't assume that their offensive line will be healthier, but they have pieces in place. Elijah Vera-Tucker, the left tackle from Louisville a couple of years ago that missed last season. They've got a couple of young offensive linemen.
Mekhi Becton's who you're thinking
of. Mekhi Becton, yes, who did miss some time. The Jets make a lot of sense for a guy like that.
But what would a Carr number look like?
A Carr number?
Derek Carr, yeah.
Whoa.
I have no idea what that number would look like. I don't think
It's got to be somewhere in the ballpark of 25.
But it's interesting that he basically demanded to be released, and he doesn't get that guaranteed money of the $40 million, right?
Because they had to cut him before the deadline yesterday, or they would be on the hook for that guaranteed money.
So maybe he'll end up costing himself some money, but being able to find a better fit and basically being able to choose where he wants to play.
Yeah, because he had a no-trade clause. And New Orleans was the only team, by the way, the reporting around that is that New Orleans was the only team that really inquired about him via trade. And, his lack of interest in that says to me maybe he doesn't want to play in New Orleans, or at least wants to see what his other options are before he commits to playing in New Orleans.
If he thought that was a good fit, would he not just stick with that contract, which is a very good contract for Derek Carr? Yeah, and go play in New Orleans. Yeah,
theoretically, yeah, because it's 40 plus. It's not 40 flat. It's 40 plus. Phil in Portland up next. Hey, Phil.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Buck. Hey, I just wanted to let you guys know, man, I think this is the time where we go back to what me and you talked about earlier in the beginning of the season, that we need to lower our expectations and be a little bit more patient. I may sound crazy, but let's get rid of Tannehill, let's get rid of Henry, and let's start plugging these holes and getting it fixed, because I don't see Henry or Tannehill in the new stadium, and I don't think Tannehill's not the future quarterback. Let's see what we got in Dobbs and save some money and fix all these corrections, and then go for a quarterback later. What do you think? Y'all have a good day.
Dobbs isn't on your roster. Dobbs isn't a Tennessee Titan right now. He's a free agent. So you don't have Dobbs. You have Malik. You have Tannehill under contract. Did Dobbs say anything this morning? I know he was on with Ramon and them.
He talked about the situation and the timeline of being signed by the Titans, called up as a starter, what it's like to play quarterback under Mike Vrabel. I'd have to go back and see and dive in more.
But nothing about future prospects with him.
No, I mean, he talked about his future and how his goal is to start in this league, and how he feels what he did this season could help him towards that goal, help him for that next opportunity. But Dobbs is like us, right? He doesn't know where he's going to be playing in 2023.
No. So see what you have in Dobbs. You literally don't have Dobbs presently. Maybe that changes. Now the get rid of Derrick Henry thing. Man. No. Just no.
Phil's talking about tearing it down and building it back up, and that's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen here. And like not even that's not even me standing on principle. If you can't ever cut Derrick Henry, yeah, everybody can get got in the league. I don't care how special they are, how important they are to you, how much they're your favorite player, whatever. Like anybody can get got, and Derrick is not an exception to that rule, but not yet. I don't think you benefit at all from letting Derrick Henry go yet. In fact, I think there's a world, and it's entirely possible, where you figure out a way to bring down that cap hit for 2023 and potentially extend him. Maybe look at the same options that you're talking about with Tannehill with voidable years on an extension. Anyway, let's talk some Vols hoops. Bob Kesling, voice of the Vols, join us coming up next. Big game tonight against the number 1 team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide in Knoxville. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Big game coming up tonight for the Tennessee Volunteers. Number 1 Alabama coming to town. You know who's going to be on the call for the Vol Network. It's Bob Kesling, voice of the Vols. Coverage starting here locally at 5:30 Central Time. Bob, how we living today?
Buck, we're good. Well, looking forward to the game tonight.
How could you not be? This is an incredibly exciting matchup. I know we talked Tennessee experiencing a bit of a slide in the last week, but this is still considered what's the best of the best in the conference. And given that it's a home game in the SEC for Tennessee, no easy thing for Alabama to come in and try and get a win.
Well, you hope not. Alabama, they've had some big wins this year, and they got a big win at Auburn. That was about as hostile a place as you could play, and they closed that game out. But this is really a very good Alabama team, or possibly great team. I mean, Brandon Miller obviously is the top freshman in the country, and you've got to figure out where he is all the time. They've gotten some transfer guys. They've got a freshman, a couple of guards that really play well, and this is a test. Auburn tried to guard the 3-point line and not let them shoot 3-pointers, which they love to do. So what did Alabama do? They got over 40 points in the paint. So Bradley can drive the ball and get to the rim. And then they got those big guys that protect it defensively. These statistically, when you look at it, these are two of the better defensive teams in the SEC. You don't think about Alabama in defense, but they rebound it, they block shots, they defend the 3-point line too, just like Tennessee does. So it's a very intriguing matchup tonight, and Tennessee just has to shake off these last 2 losses and be ready to play, and I think they will be. I mean, if you're not excited about playing the number 1 team in the country on your home floor, probably need to be doing something else tonight.
Back-to-back buzzer beaters, the way that the Vols have lost these games to Vandy and Mizzou, now getting ready to play Alabama. Bob, is there a commonality between those 2 games that you've seen other than the way that they've ended?
Well, missed free throws, not executing down the stretch. And Coach Barnes will tell you the same thing. I mean, everything was in place for Tennessee to win both of those games. All you got to do is make your free throws, and there's nobody at the line in the last 4 minutes you'd rather have there than Santiago Vescovi, but unfortunately missed the free throw at Vanderbilt. That opened up the gate, and then he actually missed 2. And the thing that was unfortunate in the Missouri game, there was the lane violation on the second one because that stopped the clock and gave Missouri time to set something up. They were out of timeout, so he would have missed the shot. They would have had a hard time getting organized and get the ball down the floor. So the basketball gods have not been kind to Tennessee in the last 2 games. We'll see if they can turn it around tonight.
Voice of the Vols, Bob Kesling, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Tennessee and Alabama. You can hear coverage of the Vol Network right here on 104.5 The Zone at 5:30 Central Time today. Perimeter defense, you mentioned in particular for both of these teams, Bob. Alabama's the second best team in the country. Tennessee's number 1, but not kind of living up to that expectation, that standard as of late, no?
Well, they held Auburn to 43 points. That's pretty good. And, the Florida game was a battle. And but in the Missouri game, that first half, they just shot the lights out. And Missouri can do that to you. I mean, they're a team that's one of the best shooting teams in the league, and they're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. And Kobe Brown really had a great first half. They were up by 17. And then, Tennessee fought back and again had a chance to win that game. So the Missouri game, they set the only team to shoot over 50% against Tennessee all season long. So that tells you something. The only team to score 80 points against Tennessee. So Missouri found something out, but sometimes you have those games. But I think this is still a very solid Tennessee defensive team. And I would be surprised if they don't play really good defense tonight. And this might be more of a grinded-out game than it will be at high-flying. Both of the teams want to push the ball. I mean, Alabama, they love transitional offense and going down there and shooting threes or driving to the basket. And but Tennessee wants to run too, so it's going to be so that takes you back to rebounding and making shots. If you limit the other team to one shot and you make some shots, then it makes the other team hard to run. So those are the formulas. But this is February basketball, and this is almost like a tournament game, NCAA tournament game. So there should be a lot of emotion in it, and I think that both of these teams are to prove so. Alabama obviously still perfect, so they want to finish the SEC schedule undefeated, and Tennessee fighting for one of those top 4 byes in the SEC tournament. So both teams have a lot at stake tonight.
Josiah Jordan-James reportedly already out for tonight's game, and Julian Phillips a game-time decision. How big of a presence would Julian Phillips be back in the lineup?
Well, he gives you a 6'8" guy that can get to the free throw line. So that and he's one of the better Tennessee defenders, protecting the basket. He's taken a lot of charges, and so yeah, that's a big loss. And but Josiah is really the guy that they really miss the most, because he's that glue guy, and he's kind of the coach on the floor, and he gets everybody lined up right. He knows what the schemes are and what they want to play, and they really miss him. I think when you look at the games when he's been out, then you can tell that Tennessee has struggled in certain areas of that and of different categories. But Josiah is a guy that is really valuable to this team, and if they're going to make a run in March, they need to get Josiah healthy and get him ready to go, because he really keeps everybody in line and does he does all the little things nobody else wants to do, and they really need him, and they need him healthy, and he hadn't really been healthy all season long, so they hope to get him ready to go for postseason for sure.
So that game will be tonight, and we'll certainly all be listening with Bob on the call for the Vol Network. Baseball, though, Bob, coming up this Friday. They've got Arizona to start their season. That happened fast. Are you excited for the new season? I know Tennessee picked first in the coaches poll to win the SEC East.
This is it's amazing that you've got a team that lost virtually every one of their position players from last year, and so you'd think it'd be a rebuilding year, and yet the recruiting that Tony Vitello does, now they're ranked by many people number 1 in the country, and largely on pitching, because they're Dollander and the rest of those guys, Chase Burns, those guys they've got. I mean, it's an unbelievable pitching staff. So they should be good. They should be fun to watch, and I know all the tickets are sold out again at the Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So there's a lot of buzz about baseball, and Tony Vitello has just done such an unbelievable job energizing this fan base, but also putting a really good product on the field. And Frank Anderson, the pitching coach, and Tony, they believe in pitching, and they believe that takes you a long way. And so they've got some of the best arms in college baseball, and they've got some players too that they've brought in and meshed together, and they should be a force. And I would think most people believe they're going to win the SEC, and we'll see how they do nationally. But there's a lot of excitement about baseball here, and it gets started this weekend.
I'm looking forward to it. Always enjoy Tennessee baseball season. Bob, before we let you go, and we do appreciate you joining us on what I know is a busy day, Gus Manning passed away on Sunday. He's the last remaining, or was the last remaining, administrative link to Robert Neyland, and somebody who I know is very, very important to that athletic program and to Vols fans everywhere. I wonder if you could just kind of speak to his passing this past weekend.
Well, it's a sad day. He lived such a great life. I mean, he got to 99 and a half, and he didn't have many bad days in there. He was always a guy that knew this place backwards and forwards. And, today there are 200 people or some in the athletic department and doing jobs that Gus did. I mean, the general gave him a list of about 31 tasks he had when he hired him as the first full-time employee in the athletic department. And Gus, Lindsey Nelson was the media director, and then Gus took his place, and then Gus moved up to administration. And Gus did everything. Did tickets, did business, he did event management, he got the buses for all the different teams, training table. He did everything. And he knew where everything was and how everything functioned, and he knew everybody in the Southeastern Conference, and everybody respected Gus. And General Neyland just gave him pretty much complete control to run things. I mean, be the business aspect of it. And Gus did all of that, and always had a cigar in his mouth, and quick wit. And I'm one of my favorite stories. And he and Johnny Majors, of course, were really good friends. And Gus did all he could during Majors' senior year to get him the Heisman Trophy. Unfortunately, Coach Majors finished second. And Majors would all through the years would always gig Gus about the fact that, well, his PR, deal campaign, only got me second in the Heisman Trophy. And Gus would fire back real quick. Well, heck, John, I had to work like heck to get you second.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah, he was cold-blooded. He would cut you down in a minute, but it was good. But he loved this place. I mean, there's nobody that was more Tennessee than Gus. And he grew up here. He went to Rural High School and played quarterback over there, and then came over here and walked on the football team for a year and played baseball for a year, and then first hired by General Nealon to guard the practice field. He let people in and out of the practice field when he was in college, and just stayed in the athletic department the rest of his life. So he was always a lot of fun to be around, and he just again he did everything here. He knew his place backwards and forwards, and nobody cared about Tennessee till his dying days in Gus Manning. So we're really going to miss him.
Man, Bob, I appreciate you sharing. We'll look forward to your call tonight and enjoy what figures to be a fantastic basketball game. Thanks for the time.
It should be. Thanks, Buck.
Bob Kesling there with us on 104.5 The Zone. What, did you fade Bob down too quickly? He was trying to give us his niceties on the way out the door. You just sent him through the trap door. You sent him to the shadow realm like I do with Robert?
No, that was you. You dropped his call.
No, I dropped his call after you faded him down very quickly, and I could hear the last gasps of, thanks for having me.
Always trying to pin your transgressions on me.
Okay, but you understand that transgressions committed on a show that I have next to zero control over immediately have to pivot back to the person who has the most control over the show.
I plead the fifth.
Very good. I mean, what is the level of optimism tonight? I do not feel terribly optimistic about Tennessee. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's hard to. Yeah. I mean, what evidence do you have over the last couple of weeks to say with confidence that Tennessee's going to knock off number 1 Alabama tonight? It could happen. It's college basketball. Tennessee's a good team. Alabama has dropped one dud this season.
Well, and I've already done the thing where I said, Vandy doesn't know how to finish games, and then they finish Tennessee on a last-second buzzer beater. Like, I'm not interested in being loud wrong like that again. But, like, here's my thing with the Vols, okay? They have now lost 3 of their last 4. All right? So it's not just this is not something that's just kind of been – it's not something that's been – just kind of like surfacing. This is something that's been bubbling up to the surface for quite some time. And when you look at the Florida game, you look at the Vandy game and the Missouri game, an Auburn win in between there, but still offensively just hideous.
Ugly win.
Hideous basketball.
Great defensive performance, but an ugly win.
Sure, and that matters, by the way. Let me not go full, mid-season Titans where I'm tired of watching them score 17 points and I'm complaining about it. But same vibes, okay? So at a certain point, I mean, they would benefit tremendously by having Julian Phillips back in the lineup. If he is available right now, game time decision, Josiah Jordan-James, as Jimmy Hyams reported earlier, has already been ruled out for this game. How many is that now for Triple J?
How many games missed? I'm trying to remember how many he missed early in the year because he missed the first.
Right.
Like they were without Josiah Jordan-James for their best win of the season against Kansas.
Yeah.
In the battle for Atlantis, but he got hurt against Vanderbilt. So you're looking at this will be his second straight missed game.
Okay.
Which just the fact again that he was questionable for this game, that it was a doubt, is a good thing.
Yeah. Progress.
based on the way he was helped off the court last week. It just did not look good. So it makes it sound like he might be able to play in Rupp Arena Saturday.
615-737-1045 is the number if you have any outlook on what the Vols, how you feel about the Vols, your confidence level in them tonight against Alabama. Lucas brought up earlier when we did SEC observations what their stretch looks like at this point. They will host Alabama tonight, then they're at Kentucky, at A&M. Their next home game on the 25th against South Carolina, who at this point has 9 wins on the season. But still, road games at Kentucky and A&M after already losing that game to Kentucky at home, a game you had no business losing and did anyway. I mean, they are good enough to beat Kentucky. They are good enough to beat A&M. When they're right, they're good enough to play with Alabama. I don't know. I still would probably favor Alabama, even though Tennessee is favored tonight by 3.
They do have to travel to Kentucky. They have to travel to A&M, and they still have to travel to Auburn, which has been one of the better home court advantages in the league this season.
Yeah, this is not an easy way to finish out your year. Alabama at Kentucky, at A&M, hosting South Carolina, hosting Arkansas, at Auburn.
That's what I'm saying. Like the opportunity was the last couple of weeks to really, get right in a lot of areas.
Build yourself some cushion for what this stretch can be, given that you have now 3 road games in your last 6. Not ideal.
Yeah, it's a bad time to not be playing your best basketball. Not as bad as, playing your worst basketball in March. So there's still time and there's opportunities. Like you have an opportunity tonight to beat the number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. You have an opportunity on Saturday to continue to kind of push Kentucky further off that bubble that they are currently on.
What are you, a coach? You have an opportunity.
You have an opportunity, men. I would make a terrible coach.
I just, those awkward live look-ins that they do where Bruce Pearl is screaming a bunch of nonsensical things at his team while he's drawing up something that's not actually a play on the whiteboard because they don't want the television cameras to have that.
It's like drawing a stick figure.
Like I'm just imagining you in front of a locker room in a suit and tie that doesn't fit correctly. Men, we have an opportunity.
Yeah, but Bruce Pearl's a good coach. Nobody would take me seriously.
Sure, it's just funny.
I could be dressed to the nines. No, doesn't matter.
All right, last call for phone calls. Poll questions are next. Fun night of college basketball coming up, not just Tennessee and Alabama. A couple of ranked teams squaring off as well. Xavier is at Marquette, 16-11. TCU and Iowa State, 22-19 matchup later this evening. I'm the only other ranked teams that are playing Virginia, South Dakota State, that's San Diego State, and Indiana.
Got Northwestern?
I would. They're both 18-7, and it's a road game. I don't like that at all. Makes me feel bad.
IU's on a hot streak, right? You won what, like 7 of 8, something like that?
They are playing very, very good basketball right now, and Trace Jackson Davis he would be talked about as the best player in the country if it wasn't for Zach Edey, I think, personally. And Brandon Miller of Alabama belongs in that discussion. But yeah, they have won. They have won 7 of 8 at this point. That lone Maryland loss while I was down there miserable in a Mobile hotel room to Maryland is where it's at. But it's all good things come to an end.
I almost want to manifest. Now Indiana would be tough, a tough out. I don't want to have to deal with Trace Jackson Davis, but
oh no, you do not want that game.
A Tennessee Indiana game in the NCAA tournament.
No.
That would be great for this show.
I don't want that at all.
I would love that.
God, where are they? Where is Indiana currently projected as far as seeding goes?
Last I saw, Tennessee was a 4 seed according to Lunardi, or maybe a 3.
I'm looking at Lunardi right now. He's got as the 1 seeds Alabama, Purdue, Houston, and Kansas. Tennessee is projected as a 3 right now with a 3 versus 14 matchup against the mighty Furman. What is Furman's mascot?
Oh, what is Furman's mascot?
There's no way you know this.
The Paladins. I think it's the Paladins.
What an odd. I would have not guessed the Paladins.
I don't know what a Paladin is.
I think it's like a soldier, maybe? Is that right? Anyway, Indiana.
Is it? Did you look it up?
No. Indiana's a 4 seed right now, and Tennessee's a 3. So that would be not possible at this point. Although, if Tennessee craters, as their schedule indicates that they might, and Indiana holds serve, it's possible. But that would be terrible for the show. What do you mean? I wouldn't come in.
You just wouldn't come in?
No.
They are the Paladins, by the way.
What game were we watching? It was either a Big Ten tournament. I think it was that damn Iowa game against Jordan Bohannon.
It was Big Ten tournament. No, I think you guys were playing Illinois.
Well, while the show was on, because Slay was in here with me, and we had to watch an Indiana game live on the air, and it did things to me that I never want to feel again, especially in front of a live microphone where I could say something that's going to get me fired.
It was fun because I have never seen you actually be a fan.
Really?
Like you're in a weird spot where you didn't grow up like a diehard NFL fan or a college football fan, but that's the only thing that
the only thing I care about.
Right. And so it was actually kind of fun to see you actually be a stressed out, strung out fan for a little bit.
You enjoyed my suffering?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't know you had that in you until then.
Fandom?
Yes, it was one of the more. I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the more human moments I've ever seen from you.
What are you trying to say?
Was you? I don't know. You do not have any allegiances other than Indiana basketball.
I truly do not care about anything in sports other than Indiana basketball.
And maybe Evansville, who, by the way, plays Belmont tonight at the Curb Center.
I know. I saw Casey, Coach Alexander, previewing it on their social media channels, and it made me very unhappy.
Evansville is terrible.
They are bad.
I just looked at. They're like 5-22.
My aces.
They're so terrible.
It's a tough scene, man. I have not forgiven Casey Alexander for beating them the first time. I'm sure that they will be able to do so with relative ease the second time at this point. But yes, Indiana and Tennessee playing in the tournament. Nothing but bad news for this show. Meanwhile, polls.
Oh, yeah, baby. This poll update is shagadelic, baby. I have a Danger Powers here. I'm Austin Powers. Danger is my middle name, baby. This is one poll I'm interested in, baby. It's shagadelic. I haven't had an update in 2023 yet. Wink, wink. Oh, hey. Take it away, Lucas Panzica. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
It's just the excessive baby.
Yeah. Love the Austin Powers movies, by the way.
They lost me on Goldmember.
Oh, what?
Goldmember was too much.
What a terrible take by you.
All right, do you consider that the best of the Austin Powers movies?
It's really hard for me to pick a best. I love
Spy
all
Who
three.
Shagged Me is exceptional.
It is. I love all three so much. Anyway, presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? John says the NFL testing a new playing surface in the Super Bowl instead of a preseason game. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty dumb.
The more that I read about this damn turf, this field that they spent 2 years growing, spent $750K on, only to have it directly impact the results of Super Bowl 57. It is one of the single biggest screw-ups that the NFL has ever made, and the NFL has terrible decision-making all over their history.
Which fan base should be most excited about their head coaching hire? Only 4 options on the poll. 5 hires were made. We asked people to reply. If the answer is Cardinals, nobody replied. 48% say Broncos. 34% say Texans hiring Demico Ryans. 10% say Panthers and Frank Reich. Only 8% say Colts and Shane Steichen.
I just don't know how you could know about either of the coordinators for the Eagles right now, but other than to look at the jobs that they're taking over, Indianapolis, just by nature of the division that they play in, looks like the better gig, I guess.
Where do the Vols need to improve most to beat Alabama tonight? 53% say it's first half scoring. 28% go perimeter defending. 19% say free throw shooting.
I will say first half scoring, just for I know perimeter defense is something that we've talked about, but that seems the easier thing for them to rectify. The first half scoring issues, they got to stop.
Titans coaching staff is official. 10 coaches that are either new to the staff or working under a different role. So what's your final takeaway from the Titans' new look staff? 56% majority say uninspired. 43% say love it. Only 1% say hate it. Mary Claire says there should be another option for cautiously optimistic.
I think cautiously optimistic is a good answer. I think we'll talk about that more tomorrow at greater length because there's just a ton of stuff there.
A lot of coordinators on this staff.
a lot of coordinators, a lot of analysts that didn't exist before. All kinds of everybody coordination and collaboration. Put it on the damn banners on the side of the fences at the practice field.
Alexio says, I voted uninspired, but I thought the same thing when they hired Vrabel. And I was obviously wrong on that one. Hoping to be wrong here, too.
I don't remember how I felt when they hired Mike. Uninspired, not that, but I don't know. The malarkey thing was so stale to me. They could have hired LaFleur, and it could have been a disaster, and I would have thought it would have been better than Malarkey and Robisky.
Well, the Vrabel thing was a great example of how we don't actually know how these things are going to pan out because none of us knew what Mike Vrabel's pedigree was as far as his knowledge of the rule book and all of these things that make him a good head coach. All we had was he was the defensive coordinator of the Texans for a season.
And they were terrible.
And their defense wasn't very good.
Terrible.
Obviously, Mike Vrabel, a few years later, ends up winning Coach of the Year. It just shows how little we can predict these things.
It's like draft classes. You don't say anything about a draft class until like 3 years after the fact, unless it's Isaiah Wilson, and you know right now.
Those are polls.
The rare stray. Anyway, that's the show. Back at it tomorrow. We will get into the AFC South at great length. We will talk about all the different coaching hires and movement that the Titans have made. Hope to have you guys here with us from 10 to 1. Prime time tonight at 8 p.m. Talk to you after the Vols and Bama game. Should be a good one. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Blaine and Mickey next.